Welcome everybody to today's episode of the NDC Spotlight. The NDC Spotlight, as you all know already, is a series of short online dialogues with government and experts to discuss different aspects of nationally determined contributions, or as we always say, NDC, which is one of the centerpieces of this heritage week. We have in each episode a country or an expert or someone from the UNFCCC will provide a 10-minute overview of actions, challenges, support programs, or insights into recent developments related to NDCs, and we are hosting this NDC Spotlight more or less twice a month. Before we start today, let me first introduce our guests. Today we have Claudio Forner from the UNFCCC Secretariat here with us, and Claudio will talk about the Talanoa dialogue and also what that means for this year and also what that means for NDC. Before we start our discussion and before Claudio will start presenting on the Talanoa dialogue, I just want to share some housekeeping rules with you. We will first hear the presentation. Thereafter, we have time for a short discussion with Claudio. You can ask questions to Claudio today on the Talanoa dialogue via the chat function during the presentation already. So I will just collect these questions and then I'll shoot them directly to Claudio, and he will hopefully be in a position to answer them. Also, this webinar will be recorded and made available online on our website. That is also where all presentations of the NDC Spotlight will be shared. With that said, I would give the floor right to you, Claudio, and I'm excited to hear about the Talanoa dialogue.
Okay, Bernd, thank you very much. So there has been quite a number of communications from the presidency on the specifics. What I have tried or decided to do is more to put the dialogue in context. So let me just go through a couple of slides. I have promised not to be more than 10 minutes on the next one. I always start my presentations with what the Paris Agreement is about. And of course, there is this goal about temperature, about resilience, and about about finance. And this is about the aim of the Paris Agreement to change the way we do things. The probably of the goals, the one that is more concrete, is the temperature one, because we have a number there. We know what it means in terms of emissions. Now, if we go one level down to the next slide. How the Paris Agreement is organized is, as I said, the most important part is the objective, but then the rest is tells you how you meet that objective. And it has various components, and all components are arranged in the same way. There is something that they call collective efforts, and then individual efforts. So if we zoom down to emissions and reduction of emissions, on the collective part, we will be looking at the emissions trajectory linked to the 2-degree or 1.5-degree goal. So that is the peaking of emissions and subsequent reductions. That is what the kind of, if I may call it so, the interpretation of the 2-degree goal or 1.5-degree goal in terms of mitigation. Then you have individual efforts, which is about the NDCs and transparency. Important here to note that, of course, these are two processes that run through time. The Paris Agreement does not have an end point. It just has, I guess that it will end whenever parties are able to meet the 2-degree goal, and of course, that would include maintaining that goal. Now, there is a link between the preparation of NDCs and the global stocktake, because, the global stocktake is supposed to be this international conversation about the goals of the Paris Agreement in themselves. NDCs or the NDC process is part of the conversation. So when parties gather together every 5 years to take stock of progress, they will have to see where are parties with their NDCs. They will have to see how together, whether or not they are in line with the 2-degree goal, and on that basis, provide information for parties as they move forward in the next communication. And this is very much similar to what is happening now, or the conversation that we're having in the Talanoa dialogue. So in the next slide, There are some reasons on why the Talanoa dialogue is coming at this stage. Yeah? So, the Talanoa dialogue originated, or the thing that originated the Talanoa dialogue is the same conversation that originated the global stocktake. The only difference is that the Talanoa dialogue was agreed before, or where parties thought that it would have been taking place before the Paris Agreement entered into force. Happily, that actually happened earlier than expected, but at the time they thought that they needed a conversation about ambition before they entered into force, because you could not just go directly into implementation without having had one. And primarily because at the time when the Paris Agreement was agreed, everybody knew that the current level of ambitions enshrined in NDC was not in line of community objectives of Paris. So you would not, or the international community would not be in a good situation starting the Paris Agreement, not having had a multilateral conversation. Linked to this is the fact that we have new NDCs. There's a mandate actually for NDCs either to be updated or for parties to communicate new ones in 2020. So there was also a need to have that conversation, if you think about it, to kickstart the process of NDC. Another one is that the global stocktake, the first one, will only take place until 2023. So it was an obvious thing to have this conversation beforehand. Importantly, something that also figures out is what is happening in the pre-2020 period. Of course, if you look at what's happening at the country level, it's not that countries cut what they're doing into pre-2020 and post-2020, but for the UNFCCC process, it has special significance, and it has been part of the it is part of the Talanoa dialogue, and looking more at that transition between the pre-2020 and post-2020 world. Okay, this is the mandate for the Talanoa dialogue. I'm not going to read it, but for you to know that it is very much in line with the side of multilateralism, looking into having a discussion as to what is happening and what should happen in view of the next steps. We have today published a report on what has been the conversation so far. For those of you who know what the Talanoa dialogue is about, there's these three questions, and what we have done with the information and the inputs that we have received is we have tried to categorize that information into themes, more recurrent themes, and this is more with a view to try to understand what the Talanoa dialogue could do at the end of the year to take stock of progress and inform parties with their NDCs. And you will have you see there the type of information that we're getting, which kind of points to what might come out from this. So on where are we, it's factual information about sustainability, vulnerability and mitigation. There's also lots of actions that are happening now. On where do we want to go is more about visions and ambition. So non-party stakeholders are talking about their targets, parties are talking about their NDCs. Probably the most action-oriented part of the dialogue is the third question, and that is what type of guidance can a process like the UNFCCC give to different actors to increase ambition. So what we've seen there is expressions of things that different actors require from different bodies. Like, for example, what can the UNFCCC process do or decide so that actors can facilitate their actions? There's also not yet. And then there's also calls for private sector. So you will see that these are sort of signals for increasing ambition and for all linked, of course, to meeting the objectives of Paris. Now, on the last slide is what does this mean for NDCs? Of course, if you look about the question about the objective of taking stock of progress, I'm sure that the Talanoa dialogue is a platform for everybody to put on the table what are they doing now, both for the pre-2020 and post-2020 world, so that the COP can take note of that. There's also a space for probably showing concern with the fact that ambition is not at the right level. About informing the preparation of NDCs, there's a lot of information that actually has been shared I guess that I must point out that during the first preparation of NDCs, something that happened at the time of the NDC, one of the factors that were mentioned in representing kind of an obstacle for parties to be more ambitious was information on what others were doing, information on what were NDCs. So I guess that now the Talanoa dialogue is also a space for this information to be there. Everybody knows what NDCs are, they have seen them, they've seen also what other countries are doing, so hopefully this provides a level of comfort as we approach 2020. And finally, on the promotion of ambition, which would be one of the key aspects of the Talanoa dialogue, there is different interpretations of what that means. There's people talking about revising NDC upwards before 2020. There's people about other parties talking about meeting pre-2020 requirements. There's also the conversation about non-party stakeholders, to what extent they are or not within NDCs, and to what extent their actions can be used for increasing ambitions, and so on. At the end of the year, we expect that all this information then will meet the objective set for the dialogue itself, and that's of course when we are in 2020, we can show the world that there has been delivery on both things that were promised for before that date, and that there's readiness to implement what happens after that date. Thank you.
Great, Claudio. That was really a good overview of the Talanoa and also what to expect from it. We received a couple of questions around, let me try to summarize them around different topics. One is basically the relationship between the global stocktake and the Talanoa dialogue. The next couple of questions is about the submissions and information that you have received and you touched upon. And the last couple of questions about non-state actors. So let me start with the first questions on the relationship between the Talanoa dialogue vis-a-vis the global stocktake. You already said they have been put in place more or less for the same reason. But here we have one question. Is the Talanoa a one-off, or could that provide a model for further discussions under the UNFCCC?
Well, it is clear from the decision that the Talanoa dialogue is a one-off. So there is a mandate for one dialogue that happens at this date. However, that does not exclude the possibility that as the dialogue comes to an end, there is additional activities that are triggered following up on what has been discussed in the Talanoa dialogue. That on the one hand, and I mean, the linkage between the global stocktake and the Talanoa dialogue is absent. So, however, that doesn't mean that the experiences that we are now gaining from the Talanoa dialogue, in particular the way the conversation goes, that does not mean that you can draw examples or practices or lessons from the process. And I'm sure that given the similarities of the two processes, that one serves, the Talanoa dialogue definitely serves the global stocktake.
Thanks for that. The next one, because you mentioned the discussion that is now happening on the Talanoa dialogue. So the next couple of questions would be around the submissions. You mentioned you are receiving those submissions already. Do you have an overview how many those are, and what kind of actors are submitting these submissions?
Yes, I actually invite everyone to go to the Talanoa platform, and the paper is there with all that information. It's actually very, very encouraging. The deadline, we receive around 220 inputs. After the deadline, we have this number has increased up to, we're almost over 250. Most of these come from non-party stakeholders. We have been encouraged by the excitement among the community of private sector, environmental NGOs, academia, civil society groups that have been submitting this information. And for us, this is very encouraging because we see that they are the ones that are going to be providing the substance. They're going to be determining to some extent what the conversation is going to be about. Of course, decisions are being taken by governments and by parties. This will be the political side, but as I said, all these non-party stakeholders of different groups are the majority and have provided great substance to it.
Can you say a couple of words about the substance, or is that because you first categorized them in one of your previous slides, but what is the substance about? Is it advice on the process? Is it more about actions stakeholders are taking themselves, or is it something, ideas of what should be done?
It is basically about everything. So I cannot say a couple of words about that, but just to pick on what you just said, yes, there are several actors that are talking about the UNFCCC process as a whole. So they're talking about participation of non-party stakeholders, how to improve it. They are also talking about expectations as to what the Paris Agreement work program should be delivering. They're outlining, saying we want NDCs to be more concrete. We want concrete and stringent guidance on NDCs. That's on the side of process. But I think that probably the most interesting part is the technologies that are being used, the policies that have been useful and that have helped countries reduce emissions, the pitfalls, obstacles. They're describing the submissions that need to be put to the attention of ministers because there's a chance that their discussions might help these obstacles being saved. So in 220 pages, each one has a 10, there's a lot of information there, but a little bit of everything.
Great, thanks for that. And the last block of questions that we have received is about basically what you just mentioned, the non-state actors and the role of non-state actors, and one specific question in this regard is whether the Talanoa dialogue could be a model for bringing in non-state actors or for actively having them contributing to the process, to the UNFCCC process.
Well, I guess that whether it's a model or not, it's kind of an obvious question. Until now, the Talanoa dialogue has been actually the place where non-party stakeholders and parties can interact. There has been any other in the past where you can have these actors together. And in fact, on Sunday the 6th, there's going to be small working tables, and the working tables are comprised by 30 parties and then 5 non-party stakeholders. So it is actually a very good opportunity to see. It is an experiment to see how this interaction would operate. Yeah.
We have another question on that end. Is it also the case that non-state actors are using the Talanoa dialogue to kind of provide their view on what needs to be done in the process? Or is there something they would need, kind of policies or clarity? You mentioned already clarity on NDC.
Yeah, I would not. There's of course part of the information of, like for example, civil society and NGOs. They tend to be quite concrete on what the process of conversation has to be, like their engagement and things like that. But I guess that you're talking more about what sort of decisions, what sort of guidance can be produced at inside the UNFCCC process to promote ambition, and that is definitely the case. And it is the case because the presidency has asked non-party stakeholders to do it, to communicate what they need from the UNFCCC process to move forward. And that you will see in the paper.
So you won't share with us like some ideas on what that could be?
Well, I won't, and the reason why I'm not going to do it is because at this stage I don't want to provide examples, because we expect that the information that has been shared by non-party stakeholders will eventually become the decision or the outcome. And at this stage it's difficult for me to provide examples because I don't want to highlight things that might end up not being in the paper. But you read the paper, you will see there's definitely very concrete recommendations on what the COP can decide. Let me put one that is there and will likely make it. But for example, the COP could request all NDCs to be revised upwards. Yeah? To what extent this is possible or not, we'll see. But this is one example of them. There's others, probably politically difficult ones, which would be that parties agree to phase out fossil fuel subsidies. Yeah? Again, I don't want to get into too much detail because we have to go through a thorough analysis as to what is possible and what not, but for you to get an idea.
Great, Claudio, and thanks a lot for all the answers. Also, thank you for the questions. In case you have any further burning questions, the time to ask them will be now. And for me, in the meantime, it would be good to, if you could just provide us an update of what are the next steps, what is happening at this session, because I think that is quite interesting for everyone, and is there still the opportunity to submit ideas, proposals, or submissions to the Talanoa dialogue, or is that deadline?
Yeah, look, the Talanoa dialogue has a preparatory and a political phase. The preparatory phase will run until COP. And now what will happen is, of course, we will go through the discussions at the May session. Afterwards, these are going to be summarized. There's another deadline for input. And when I say input, it is important for everybody to understand that this is addressing the questions of the Talanoa dialogue, and that we are using those questions to produce a synthesis of the messages that ministers will have to consider at the end of the year. So please, if you have, or the message has to be spread that the actual inputs will be used and are being very helpful in preparing the messages to be considered by ministers at the end of the year. Then at the political phase, we will have ministerial roundtables, and they will result in something that is called an outcome, but at this stage it's difficult to tell how that looks like.
Just for clarification, the political phase is something that will happen at the COP in Katowice, where we are now still also at this session here in Bonn at the preparatory phase.
Correct.
Okay, good. I have not received any further questions, so with that, I would really like to thank you, Claudio, for giving us the update. And I would like to close our webinar by just reminding everyone that for updates on the NDC Spotlight, please visit our website at UNFCCC.in, go to the NDC section and there click on the NDC Spotlight, or just sign up for our mailing list under ndc@unfccc.in. The next session is very likely to take place in 3 or 4 weeks after the Bonn Climate Change Conference, where we will give an update on what happened there in respect to NDC and the work program on the Paris Agreement. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening, and have a good day.